Welcome home. This is episode 2 of our podcast, The Breakthrough with the Browns, a podcast all about real talk, real stories, and real growth. We are so excited to have you back with us. Hopefully, you saw our first episode last week, and I am super excited to announce what our topic is for the day. It's going to be super juicy. It is, should we maintain friendships of the opposite sex when you're in a relationship?
Wow.
Pastor, what do you think about that?
Yeah, wow. Y'all, let me tell you, first of all, let me tell you, we purposely did not share notes with one another as a part of preparation for this particular podcast and this particular subject. And the reason why is because we want the conversation to be as authentic as possible. Let me tell you, this is a very, very controversial subject because it's natural to have friends if you're a man to have females that are your friends, or if you're a woman to have, vice versa, to have men who are friends of yours. But then it gets real sketchy when you have a relationship now with your spouse, in terms of what does that friendship that you had prior to the relationship forming, what does that friendship look like, or what should it look like moving forward? And so, babe, I don't know. I mean, this is a hot topic, right? So, I
I
mean,
have my thoughts.
you have your thoughts?
Yes, sir, I do.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, and I know everybody that's watching, y'all can relate to this, right? Because you've probably had a similar situation, right? You get a new boo in your life and you like this guy a lot. And if you're a woman, you have a new guy in your life, and you tell your girlfriends about it, but you also may want to bounce the information off of one of your homeboys to get his thoughts. Hey, this guy's asking me out, this and that. And this guy sort of serves as a consultant to you in the initial phases of that relationship. Well, let's be honest, and I think you may agree, it's cool to have that dynamic in the beginning, but then what happens is as you grow in that relationship, if you're confiding in two different men, sometimes you can get conflicting information, that your homeboy may give you some advice that may be different than your man, or in this case your husband. And the issue is that whose voice or whose advice, even if the brother may be giving you some sound insight, whose advice do you follow? And so the question then comes is, if it's a real friendship, then that friendship should be disclosed to your significant other. In other words, there can't be no private friendships. Hey, I got James or Leroy over here on the side, or in my case, I've got Monique or Monica over here on the side, and they know nothing about Tony in my life, right? Or Tony knows nothing about them. Because if it's a relationship you got to hide, well, let's be honest, y'all, it ain't really a friendship. It's a little something more than that.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I don't know. That's my initial thoughts. We can dive deeper, but Tony, what you
Absolutely.
think?
So I am in agreement. Co-ed friendships for me, if the other person does not know about that friendship, is a hard no. I mean, if you think about it, if I had a guy, we're married, I have a guy that's been my friend for a long
Yeah.
time, and I'm talking to him on the side about things that I may not even be talking to you about. Then you find out that I'm talking to this guy, you would have a problem with that, right? And so I'm thinking you have to disclose your friendships with the opposite sex, with
Yeah.
your mate. Not only disclose, but I want to get introduced. I want to have a conversation with them too. I want to text them back and forth as well, because she needs to know ain't nothing getting in between this.
All right.
Because at the end of the day, people are people, humans are humans, everybody has needs. And you may talk to her in a space where she is down and out and needs a man to warm up to or talk to and need advice from. You know, one thing can lead to another, and before you know it, y'all laying up in the bed somewhere.
Wow.
So it's important that we, as couples, if you're in a long term relationship, if you're married, you have to ensure that you are open with your mate, because that's the first thing that will go is trust, right? And so if your mate can't trust you to hang out with your friends, it's because you weren't disclosing all the information. Information has to be open and disclosed. So for me, if you have female friends and they are truly female friends, and we can talk about their friends that you've actually had some things happening with this friend, that's a whole nother story. But
Yeah.
I need to know who those female friends are. What's their angle? I could trust you all day, but I don't know what that other person's angle is going to
Yeah.
be. So I need to be in the middle of all of
Okay,
that.
okay. Well, so listen. So tell the truth. Okay. So let me say. So if let's just use my example. Let's just use us as example. So if you came upon again, y'all, this ain't scripted. This is
Mm-mm.
raw, right? So if you came upon and I introduced you to a homegirl of mine, right? And the moment you meet her, you look at her and say, "Wow, she's fine." You say she's
Mhm,
fine,
mhm,
and you say in your mind, she's the type of woman that my man, under normal circumstances, would be attracted to.
mhm,
How does that make you feel when you find out that the female friend she's got a booming body, she's really attractive, she's got the package,
mhm.
and your man claims that she is just
Your friend.
my friend, my homegirl?
Yeah, so let me be very honest with you.
Okay.
And I don't care if she's a 10, a 5, or a 2 on the scale of attractiveness.
Wow.
What I would look at first is the dynamic that you guys carry between each other. I would look there first.
Okay.
I would feel some kind of way if it was a 2 or a 5 or a 10 and the dynamic, the energy between you two felt off to me. Yes, I would feel uncomfortable. I have really good discernment and I can tell when things aren't right. So if I get that something's not right, then we're going to have a conversation.
Yeah.
Now, would I ask you to cut her off? No, that's not my job to do. But what I would ask is we now need to come together and talk through
Yeah.
this and what makes the most sense for our relationship.
Yeah.
That's where I would be with that.
I mean, I think that's honest. I mean, y'all, my wife, when we first started dating, I can't use the language she said on this
Oh my God.
podcast, but you'll get the gist when I say, "Oh, that's my friend," and
I'm like,
oh, she's 50, she's 60, she's whatever, and you say to me, I'll paraphrase. She's like, "Well, she's got needs too." Right. And you say that she's got needs too. And basically what you're saying is as long as she's breathing, she has
mm-hmm,
human needs.
right.
And so don't get it twisted, don't be fooled. Um, but first of all, I appreciate what you said. I mean, I
So I want to pose a question to you.
okay.
So how would you feel if I introduce you to a man that's been my friend, but he's tall, dark, handsome, built, buff, pretty teeth, nice
Yeah.
shoes,
Nice
dressed
shoes.
nice? How would you feel?
Well, first things first. What's funny? There's an element that we can't that's inescapable in this situation. And that element is that men or people in general, but especially men, we men are very territorial. It's one of the reasons why when we take our dog for a walk, he's always looking at a tree and he'll smell it first to see if he smells another dog's scent on it. And then he'll pee on that tree. He'll mark his territory. Well, we feel that way about the woman in our life. We're very, very territorial. And so, like I was saying a little bit earlier, if I'm going to be your man, and particularly before the marriage is formed, I want to elevate to the role of being the king in your life and you being my queen. So what that means is that there's only one king in the house and there's only one queen in the house. So if you had a friendship with Mr. Tall, dark, and handsome with the fancy shoes, my thing is we're going to have to then have that. You are going to have that conversation with him to say, hey, fancy shoes. Um, listen, you know what? Man, I am so excited. God has brought this amazing, dope brother in my life. I love him dearly. You always gonna be my friend, but now you're gonna become our friend
Yes.
because I'm excited about you meeting him because I really think you'll like him. And
Yes.
I ask you to, to just pray for us and just because again, I value you as a friend. And once my man meets you, he'll also see why why we
Yeah.
had such a close connection. But moving forward, we won't have sidebar conversations anymore because I'm yielding that advice and that disclosure, or he's going to be the only shoulder I cry
Right.
on when I have periods of weakness. And to be honest with you, that goes both ways,
Hmm.
right? I need to do that to you because to be frank with you, before and y'all know this, before you get into a relationship with someone, you have a series of sisters. If you're a man, you have a series of sisters in your life that you confide in or that you bounce stuff off of, or you may crack a joke, or you may meet for happy hour, or whatever the dynamic. And then what happens is you get this queen in your life, and all of a sudden, your friends start to feel some type of way because you start to separate from them. And like I said to you, I then, if I was in that situation, have to say, you know what? I found a new boo. Her name is Tony. And child, I can't wait for you to meet her.
Yes.
But let me go back to your earlier
Yeah.
comment, your earlier question.
Hmm.
Is it cool for you to be friends with someone? And again, I know some church folks on here, so we can pretend like we didn't have a life before we came to God. But I'm
Hmm.
not going to do that. We keeping it 100 with you. Is it cool for you to be friends with someone that you used to date
Mm.
now that you're in a relationship, or you're in a relationship, or particularly even especially if you're in a marriage?
Right. So my answer would be no.
Okay.
If we love and respect and care for the person that we are with, which would be you, it would be easy for me to cut off anybody from my past that I have dated because my heart is with you. And I don't want to do anything to interrupt what we have. So if that means cutting off people I dated in the past, they're gone.
Mm,
It's the past. Why am I looking back anyway? I have this king right here next to me
all
with
right.
whom I can talk to about anything, who covers me like nobody's business. So, why in the world would I subject our relationship to strife by continuing to talk to somebody that I had walked away from?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I would cut them off
Yeah.
easily.
Let me tell you something. That is so deep. That's so spot on. Let me tell you that as a pastor, not only as a pastor, but just as a human being, and I know you'll testify to this. One of the things that the enemy does when you start to have troubles in your house is the thing that the enemy says to the woman is that he says to the woman, your husband doesn't understand you like tall, dark, and
Mhm.
handsome with the fancy shoes. Or he tells the man, she doesn't get you the same way. And I'm
Mhm.
making up a name, but Monica or Michelle or Monique, she doesn't get you the way those other people got you. So then what happens is the moment he starts to creep into your relationship and begin to cause discord,
Yeah.
then you have the impulse to reach back out to old friendships, almost as I can no longer cry on your shoulder, but let me go back to something that's familiar.
Mhm.
And that's a trick of the enemy. One of the things I'll share with you from a biblical perspective, I mean, we are pastors, so we got to keep it 100 with you. The Bible says in the book of Romans, St. Paul talked about not letting your good be spoken evil of. In other words, and it says in Thessalonians, that same Paul said, y'all, we need to shun or avoid the very appearance of evil. And so the one thing that I have to do, and my brother Sid was talking about this earlier, is that the thing that I had to do, y'all, and I'll be frank, this took some time. is I had to make sure that my wife had my passwords, that she knew that I was fully disclosing my hidden life to her. But also, if you're going to do that, then the person that you're disclosing that to also needs to be mature and say, "Hey, you know what? He's made this completely available to me, or she's made this completely available to me." And every now and then you may have a straggler that needs to get corrected, that may still send a little bird or a little Pony Express message to you.
Hey, big head.
Hey, big head, yeah, whatever. You know what I'm saying? And
Hmm.
so, but the bottom line is, I don't ever want her to feel what's the term? I don't ever want her to feel uncomfortable
Yeah.
with any relationship because she's my boo.
Yeah.
And I don't know, how do you feel, lady?
And let's be real. We have struggled
Yeah,
with this. That's why we are so passionate about it, because we know it can destroy
yeah,
relationships. So we're being very transparent, because I had to deal with this with Pastor Craig early on in the relationship. So we understand, we know, we get it, and we push through it. So that's why I feel like we can talk to you guys about it, because we've been through it. And everything that we talk about on this podcast, we've probably gone through it, seen it, heard it, something.
yeah.
So here's another question for you.
Oh,
So let's say there is trouble in paradise in the marriage, and friendships are around that the mate doesn't know about. How do you pose that question to your mate without getting into an argument or somebody feeling some kind of way? If you know, say for example, I may know that you're still talking to whomever,
okay.
that's your friend, but you have not disclosed to me. What's the best way to approach you with that information so that you won't get upset about it? Now, I know I did it before, and it didn't go over very well. So I want your advice on, and the people probably want to hear too, how do you best address it, particularly with a man
Mm.
in that situation?
Yeah, that's a good question because first of all, I mean, y'all, when I tell you this is unscripted, right? We didn't exchange notes. We don't have cue cards to tell us what to say. This is really from the heart. Like in that, one of the things that I talked about that is inherent in men is this concept of that we're very territorial. But also, one of the things you've heard people say this, that women desire love, men desire or require respect, right? And so, even if you're coming to us with a controversial or a touchy subject, like let me tell you, brothers, one of the scariest things, there's three words that scare brothers to death. Or is it three words? We need to talk. That's four words, right? We need to talk. Those
Yeah.
four words cause heart palpitations in the strongest of men because we're like, oh God, what is it? And we're like, okay, what is it that she knows that I don't know, that she's about to throw a bomb on me and bust me out, and I'm looking for the exits, trying to figure out where to go. But to your point, even if you have something delicate like that that you want to share with me, or you want to confront me on, do it in a respectful manner. That's it. Hey, I know you're still talking to
Hmm.
Monique. I still used to talking to, well, when you say talking, do you mean you're still talking to this person? Are they applying for a job? Are they this or they that? Or are you just talking to them, sharing the basics of your day? Now, if you're just sharing the basics of your day with someone, then you don't need to do that,
No.
right? Because that's the sort of thing you disclose with your wife. But if a person calls you for something intentional, like for example, you have an area of expertise
Mhm.
and they say, hey, they reach out to you and they say, Tony, it's a man reaching out to Tony, hey, I hope you and Pastor Craig are doing well. Listen, I know you have an expertise in you have a doctorate in organizational development. I'm having real challenges within my company. Do you have any resources that you recommend or people that you can connect me with? That's appropriate, right? But it's another thing if it's just casual dialogue and y'all chit chatting and stuff like that. Well, nah, because that's then again, regardless of the context, still approach me respectfully in that situation. And likewise, I do the same thing to you because what happens is remember what the end result is that you want.
Mhm.
You want the end result to be that the situation is disclosed and that the behavior changes. And so if you want the behavior to change, then you, without there being World War III kicking off in your house,
Mhm.
then it's how you approach people with respect and wisdom. So, I mean, do you agree? I mean,
I absolutely agree.
yeah,
Respect is paramount, and we have to respect each other in all aspects of our relationship. And so I know I've probably done it the wrong way plenty of times because I'm not perfect, people. However, I'm learning and I'm
yeah,
growing, and that's life. So
yeah,
thank you for sharing that.
yeah.
All right. Any other final thoughts on this topic? Bottom line to this is what, in your opinion? I'll give my bottom line.
Well, bottom line is, if I ask you to be my wife, y'all, I should say First Corinthians, because there's a first and a second letter to Corinthians. But the first letter to Corinthians, St. Paul said in that seventh chapter, he basically says that my body doesn't belong to me, my life doesn't belong to me. If I make a decision to marry someone, then my body, my everything that I have, my relationships, that I belong to my wife, and likewise she belongs to me. That is if you want to operate in a godly realm, right? If you just want to operate how the world does stuff, then you don't really care what the church or what the word of God
Hmm.
says. But for those of us that are attempting to live godly, let's keep it 100, then we have a guidebook on how relationships should be. And if I'm trying to be your covering, as you said so well earlier, then I have to love you as Christ loved the church,
Right.
which means I got to humble myself. I got to take up my cross. I got to do all the things. I've got to love you as he required us to love you.
Yeah.
And that means laying aside. And if they're really my friends,
Hmm.
if they're really my friends,
Right.
female friends,
Right.
they will understand.
Absolutely.
They belong. If they're not my female, if they're not my real friends,
Yes.
and they really want to be a side chick, or they
Hmm.
really want to be something else,
Hmm.
then yes, that needs to be cut off anyway, right?
Correct.
Let's keep it at 100.
Absolutely.
But I don't know,
Yeah.
baby. How about you?
I absolutely agree. I think at the end of the day, if you value your relationship with your partner, you will respect them, you will be an open book to them. And if there are outside friends that you have, your mate should know about them.
Yeah,
And if for any reason you feel like that outside friend may want more than a friendship, as Pastor Craig said, we have to cut it off
yeah,
because it will destroy your relationship for sure. So we'll end with that. So thank you guys so much for listening in on episode 2. Hope you got a few nuggets from it. And just remember, our podcast is all about real life, real stories, and real growth. The Breakthrough with the Browns will be back with you next week. And speaking of next week, our topic for next week is a good one as well. It is the scarcity of good men, ladies. So I need you to bring all your friends to this podcast next week because we're going to talk real deal about where are the good men and
oh
why is there
wow.
such a shortage of them. All right, so you guys, please remember to tune in to our YouTube station, subscribe, share, share, share. And if you're in the DFW area, we would love for you to come visit our church at Victory Station Ministries. And if you want to visit our website, it's vsmdfw.org to get all the information about our church services. Have a great one.